All right, so now for the next example, I want to remind you guys before I write the example out, I want to remind you that we are doing linear equations, and there's some key components. The slope-intercept form, and that's why we call it the slope-intercept form, is basically a representation of a linear equation. So this right here is a linear equation. That means that it makes a straight line and it has some important information. So the word linear basically says it all. It has the word line in it. So when I graph this, it's going to be a straight line. Well, there's a couple of things. One, the number in front of the x to the first power, that's the slope. Always, that's the slope. And then the constant, it's the number without the x, that is always the y-intercept. And so the key here is that if I go to graph this, right? If I graph this function, it doesn't matter what the function is. If I graph this function that goes like this, there's a couple of things. The y-intercept is just going to be the b, right? So this is where it crosses the y-axis. We call that the y-intercept. And that crosses the y-axis, and this is the x-axis, okay? And then my slope is just going to be the rise over run. So it's going to be my rise over my run. So the slope is technically the rise over the run. Now that's a lot of information I wrote down, but what I want you to see is that if I give you in function notation, if I say f of x is equal to 3 halves x minus 4, I need you to be able to identify the slope. Now the slope is not the value for x, it's the number in front of x. So the slope is not 3 halves x, the slope is the rise over run. So my slope then is 3 over 2. And what does that mean? That means that my rise, I'm going to go up 3. And then my run, I'm going to go to the right 2. That's all that means. And then the negative 4, that means that I'm going to cross the y-axis at negative 4. All right. So I'm going to move my picture over here. So now if I were to graph this, where this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis, then the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put my picture right there. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label the y-intercept. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and at negative 4, that's where I'm going to cross the y-axis. Then lastly, from there, I'm going to go up 3 over 2. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go over 1, 2. That's a point on the line. Up 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2. That's a point on the line. 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2. That's a point on the line. So I'm going up 3 over 2, and that is how I graph my equation. Does that make sense?